Hi guys, good morning or good afternoon. We're going to be continuing our learning of functions with these notes. So when we think about writing function rules, we read the statement and we write a function according to that statement. So the first step is the output. The output. So the output would indicate y. So like y. The output is, and I don't know if you remember, but the word is in math means equal. So the output y is 5 less than the input. This is where you kind of have to flip them, I guess, in your mind. So the input would be our x. This is our input. And 5 less than the input would be minus 5. Because the input isn't being 5 isn't being subtracted by the input. The input is being subtracted by 5. So that's why you write the input, which is x. And then you take away 5 from it because it says it's 5 less than the actual input. So then the function rule would be y equals x minus 5. So the pattern or the rule would be y equals x minus 5. So if we had a table, that would be the pattern. Like they're subtracting by 5 each time. All right, another thing that you have to know for this section is evaluating a function. All right, so let's say you're given a function rule, and the function rule is an equation. So here, it'll be worded like this. What? I'm going to actually change back to my my other colored pen. So what is the value of y equals 2x plus 5 when x equals 3? So basically the question is, what's the output when you input 3? What's the output when you input 3? And this is called evaluating a function, by the way. So my input is 3. So everywhere I see the letter x, I'm going to input the number 3. Here I see my letter x, so I'm going to input 3 right there. So when I rewrite this, I have y equals 2 times 3 plus 5. So my input is 3. Now we're going to find our output. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 5 is 11. So in other words, when x equals 3, y equals 11. So in other words, this x is our input and our y is our output. All right, so this question is asking, find y when x is 5. So in other words, you're going to plug in 5 where you see x and find what y is. So 7 stays 7 minus 3 times the quantity of 5. And 3 times 5 is 15. And you still have the 7 minus 15. And remember, when you see subtraction, you change it to addition of the opposite. Therefore, you have 15 negatives and 7 positives. You have more negatives than positives, so you subtract those from each other and you make your solution negative. So we found that when x is 5, y is negative 8. So in other words, our input of 5 produces an output of -8. All right, so this next part is just going to be an overview of what we've been learning this week. And I think you guys are going to it's all going to come together now. So go ahead and write summary. And it's not going to be like a legit, like, 5-paragraph summary. It's going to be more like a picture or a representation. Let's say you're given words, okay? Let's say you're given words. And the words that you're given are, I'm just going to write it a little closer to the top. And the words are, an output is 2 more than the input. So an output is 2 more than the input. The next thing I want you to try is to write the equation. So just try to write the equation. I'll give you guys about, 20 seconds. All right, so hopefully some of you guys tried to answer this in the chat right now during class. So an output is the y. Remember, like if you had an input-output table, the output would be the y. So there's the output. The input is the x, okay? So the output is, in other words, equals 2 more than the input. The input and 2 more than the input is plus 2. More than is plus, and then 2 is just the number 2. So the equation is y equals x plus 2. Now you could make an input-output table. This is a summary, okay? So you can make an input-output table. And your input-output table would represent your x's that you input and your y's that you get as your outputs. So if I were to be given an input-output table instead of an equation, I would probably be given the points at which the equation is graphed on a line. So let's say they were to input -1. If I were to input -1, what's -1? If I plug it in right here, -1 plus 2. -1 plus 2, that's +1. That would be my output. What if I were to input 0? Well, let's look at our equation. Y equals x plus 2. If I were to input 0, okay, right here, what's 0 plus 2? 2. That's why I'm writing 2 right here. Because if I plug in 0, if I input 0, my output will be 2. Let's input let's input 1. That's another easy number to input. Input 1. So now I want you to visualize. If I input the number 1 right here, what's 1 plus 2? 3. That's what goes there. And then if I input 2, what's 2 plus 2? 4. Cool. So they could give me an input-output table, or I can make an input-output table. I could also make a mapping diagram. Remember, this is a summary of everything we've learned. This right here is an input-output table. But I know some of you guys really like the mapping diagrams. Oops. Sorry, sometimes my writing gets really sloppy because there is like a lag in my writing and my Apple Pencil, so I have to rewrite it. Let's try a mapping diagram. Remember I taught you can just write like a rectangle or draw a square. Not a square, a circle. So we have our inputs and we have our outputs. So my inputs are -1, 0, 1, and 2. My outputs are 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's cool. -1 goes to 1. 0 goes to 2. 1 goes to 3. 2 goes to 4. Cool. So you could be given an input-output table. You could be given a mapping diagram. What's the big deal? The big deal is to show you a line that is a function. So I'm going to try to drop an image here that gives me a graph. All right, so you guys don't have to draw the graph, but I just want you to see what the whole picture, what the bigger picture is of all this. So if you guys look at your mapping diagram, or if you look at your input-output table, you have a point of -1, 1. -1, 1. That is your first point. -1, 1. So I'm going to go to my graph, my x and y plane, and I'm going to go to -1, 1. There we go. My next point is 0, 2. So I'm going to 0, 2. Cool. Now my next point is 1, 3. So I'm going to go to 1, 3. And then my next point is 2, 4. 2, 4. Beautiful. Now I can connect that, and I can actually make a, I'm trying to find, there we go, purple. I can actually make my line. That's the line of y equals x plus 2. And again, you don't have to draw this, but that's what this input-output table represents. It represents points on a graph. And the points specifically on the graph of your function of y equals x plus 2. So the function is y equals x plus 2, and the inputs and the outputs represent the x values and the y values, those points that are actually on the function, on the line of the function.